Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
So, welcome everybody to this new session of the European Alliance Against Coronavirus. Bonjour today, okay, to the speakers and special thanks to Krzysztof Krystowski for organizing the session, okay, contacting the speakers and he's our, as you very well know, Vice President of the European Cluster Alliance and real experts on this field. And so, Christoph will be the moderator for today. I will just make the introduction and Christoph will take the floor. But anyway, I need to say thanks to Julie Rafton Holibet from Techstera, Siga Balik from Optitech, Jakub Palowski from Defense 24 Portal, and also again to Christoph. Christoph, from now on, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio, for this nice introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm very happy to host the webinar, the session focused on defense, clusters and defense. We have never been discussing this subject. Clusters in the defense sector are not very popular, we could say, but there are some clusters which are dealing with dual-use technologies very often. Especially there are aerospace defense clusters, but also others, and that's why I'm very happy to introduce our today guests, who are representing. Two of them are representing clusters, and the third guest, Jakub Palowski, is from a Polish Defense 24 portal, which is portal as name. You could see the name is very much specialized in defense sector and defense issues. So we will have 3 presentations, 2 of them from France. But as I know my colleagues, they will not speak only about France, because both of them are leaders of European cluster networks focused on some defense and dual-use technologies. While the third presentation will be focused on Polish market, which is the biggest defense market in eastern part of Europe, and I think could be kind of example of what's going on in eastern part of European Union, and which kind of challenges are related to post-COVID situation in Eastern Europe. So after this short introduction, let's go to Julie Rafton Jolivet. I hope that my pronunciation is not very bad. From Techstera cluster. Techstera cluster is a leader of a group of clusters involved in defense issues, and they establish the group which is called Alliance. And Julie, tell us more about that. Please remember, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yes.
About 10 minutes. If it is 12, don't worry. Then we should have still time for discussion. So, Julie, floor is yours.
Thank you, Christoph. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you should ask Nina probably to do it.
Can you see it now?
Not yet. Yes, now we see it. Go on.
Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present the project. So the project is EU Alliance. So Alliance was the first stage of the project that I will describe a bit more right after. So EU Alliance, standing for European Alliance for International Business Development on Advanced Materials Connectivity for Defense and Security Markets. So the objective of the project, here we are. So the objective of EU Alliance is to support the internationalization of dual-use technologies in the fields of technical textiles and globally other advanced materials, advanced technologies and connectivity. As you mentioned, Christophe, this project is led by Tectera. So Tectera, it's a French innovation cluster, but with 5 other partners. Another one in France, Systematic, 2 in Italy, 3 in Italy, sorry, 2 in textiles and 1 in connectivity, and 1 in the Netherlands, based in focusing on the defense market. So EU Alliance is the continuation of the Project Alliance launched in September 2019 for 24 months. I will describe it a little bit after. The kickoff meeting of EU Alliance will be in September this year, duration of 24 months, and globally the budget is 500K with the financial support of the European Union of 450K. So the partners of the project, as I mentioned, Tectera on textile, 3 clusters, entity, Pointex from Italy, also focusing on the textile industry. We have the innovation cluster Systematic, focusing on deep tech, based in France, and SIT on connectivity, and NIDV on the defense and the security markets. So this basically these partners had the opportunity to work all together during the first step of the project, and we really have a cross-sectoral approach. So we have textiles, connectivity, deep tech, but really the common point is dual-use technologies and the focus on the defense and security markets. Couple of words of the first stage of the project, which had the same objective. But regarding the mission, the stage 1 was more focusing on the definition of an international strategy, identification of intersectoral synergies, market studies on the 3 countries that we decided to target, so the USA, Japan, and South Korea. And then we also organized first exploratory missions. The objective was to give the opportunity for companies to better understand the defense and security markets in those 3 countries, identify key players, common issues, and collaboration opportunities, and obviously facilitate collaboration between Europe and companies in those countries, both on the business side and on the technological side. Something I didn't mention, we had the opportunity to organize the exploratory missions in the US and in Japan, but unfortunately for South Korea, due to the COVID-19, we were not able to go at the end of the process. This was just some examples of possible cross-sectoral synergies, so showing the dual-use dual-use technologies and targeting both markets in the industry, defense, sports, can be mobility, medical as well. So regarding EU Alliance, we decided to capitalize on the 2 of the countries that we targeted on the first stage of the project, which are Japan and the US. The objective was really to build the relationship on the contact that we already established there, extend the search of partners, and encourage the development of cooperation. So regarding Japan, right now we already have MOU, a memorandum of understanding, under discussion. We have 1 memorandum of cooperation signed, and we have also privileged contact with the METI, which is the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry of Japan. Regarding the United States, we also have an MOU signed. We also have contact established with the Defense Industry Association, and we were able to visit some show dedicated to the sector as well. So we were able to make some good contacts. And we decided to add 2 new countries based on the opportunities that we identified there. The idea here is to capitalize on existing partner networks that we all have as clusters, expand the search of partners, and obviously also encourage development of cooperation. So in Canada, we also have the objective to work in collaboration with the project Kets for Dual Use 2.0, which Tika will present the project a bit after. So the idea was to make a union of our forces to have a bigger delegation there. And we also decided to target Indonesia. This was a request from a suggestion of the Army Ministry in France for dedicated to the Army. So we decided also to target this one. Regarding the eligible European companies, so the project really focused on the support of SMEs located in the European Union in the fields of advanced materials, obviously including technical textiles, advanced technologies and connectivity. It can be companies already present in the defense and security markets, but also wishing to develop in these segments. And obviously interested in commercial and partnership collaboration in the countries that we target. Some words of the action plan. So we're going to work on market studies, both to present the opportunities in the textile and connectivity markets in those 4 countries. Also some awareness of interculturality. Highlight specificity of business practices, partnerships, also presenting possible financial supports to help companies to participate, to attend the missions. Once we are there, the objective is to make participants discover the local markets, to have meetings with key players, to be able to discuss about common issues and collaboration opportunities. And obviously also strengthen the link between European actors. As a delegation, we will also build some strong link between us, and we will be able also to work even more also between European companies. And that's about it for the project. I think I went very fast. 9 minutes.
Yeah, you have time now for saying something from your heart to everybody. Now, if you okay, fine. It was very interesting. I hope that we will have time to discuss it after. But let's go with next presentations, and then we will have time for questions for discussion with all of presenters. So let's go to Ziga Valic. I don't know how should be, and yeah, Valic. Yes, and Ziga is representing, as was said before, the cluster Optitech, which is a leader of the second project, which was mentioned in presentation of Julie, which is Kets for Dual Use. And now let's give a floor for Ziga to tell us about this project. Ziga,
thank you, Christoph. Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Thank you to Antonio and Nina for the invitation. So just couple of introductory remarks. As you said, Christoph, it's true that I think defense sector it's not a natural habitat for clusters. Indeed, we saw it. I mean, we see it also in the audience. Less participants today. I participated in some other sessions, and the audience was bigger. But I mean, it's to me, it's completely natural. It's not our natural habitat, as I said. So myself, again, Žiga Valic, working for Optitech. We are a photonics and imaging cluster based in the south of France. So for those of you that don't know what photonics is, basically, to put it simply, it's all the light-based technologies, so cameras, lasers, sensors. So very much present in the defense sector, but not only. So ourselves, we're not considered as a purely defense cluster. As Julie said, and Tectera is a good partner of Optitech. We are, I would say, a dual-use cluster. In France, you have clusters that are purely dedicated to defense. I mean, there is one called Eden, and then you have other clusters, but most of them are dual use. So we have other sectors. In our case, that's smart mobility, health, etc. So my presentation, actually, I will not be speaking about the project itself. I will describe it just briefly. But for the sake of time and the interest for participants, I just wanted to share a couple of lessons that we've learned during the phase one, and then the success factors, because we do consider phase one, which was implemented now it's been 1 year, as a success. So I wanted to share this and give some food for thought, and then some elements for discussion later on. One important thing, and Julie mentioned this in her presentation, in France, so we have the so-called DGA. In French, it's Directorat Général d'Armement. In English, that's French Director General of Armaments. So basically, you have 10 clusters, and Tectera and Optitech are among those 10, who are under the direct supervision of Ministry of Defense, and get some funding from the ministry as well to then to carry out activities, etc. So as I said, dual use activities. The project that we are coordinating now, we'll be coordinating phase two. Phase one finished for us we were lucky just before the pandemic hit. So we were in Singapore for a last trip in February. Now it's been 2020. So we've experienced how prepared authorities in Singapore were, and how unprepared we were in Europe. So CATS for dual use, the same format of the project as Julie mentioned. So CATS for dual use, that stands for Key Enabling Technologies for Dual Use. So we're Optitech as a coordinator, but we do have European partners as in all of the European projects. So we have a Danish cluster called Sensec, active in the defense and security sectors. We have Estonian defense cluster, which is a part of Estonian Defense Industry Association. And in phase one, we also had Minalogic, which is a technology cluster. I think they intervened in the morning sessions already on other topics. So basically, we had kind of a partnership where we had 2 technology clusters and 2 end user clusters. And for phase 2, we've added SAFE cluster, which is also a cluster in security and defense based in our region. So ourselves, we have the headquarters is in Marseille, so the south of France, but we do have offices also in Toulouse, in Sophia Antipolis, which is eastern from Marseille, and we have an office in Brussels since 2014, where myself I'm based. What's also interesting, I think, in this debate is that not only is defense sector not a natural habitat for clusters, but the European Commission, until now it's been some time, but in 2014, defense was not a topic that would be funded by European funds. At most, we were able to apply for dual use activities, and then that changed drastically from 2014 to in 2021. I think most of you are aware that there is a European Defense Fund that's being put in place. I mean, it's in place. The first calls will be open. There's quite some money, 13 billion in total over 7 years. So that became a big topic. There is a DigiDefis now dedicated to defense and space. So it's an important topic, and I think clusters are being considered as a player more and more. Although it's very much that the sector in itself is dominated by prime contractor in France. If I just mention some, you know, Thales, Airbus, Safran, etc. In Germany, you have Rheinmetall. In Spain, you have actors. In Italy, it was Finmeccanica, now Leonardo, etc. So I think we're searching for our position. I think we are more and more recognized as a player that can bring added value. But we still have a certain competition that we face from National Defense Industry Association. Myself, I participated in, I would say, it was 2015, I think, European Defense Agency created a working group of clusters and NDIAs, so National Defense Industry Associations. And at that time, we were seen as a competition. But slowly, people realized that we're more of a complementary, I would say, structures than a competition. So just a couple of opening remarks. I think this is important for this discussion. So yeah, just coming back to the Cats for Dual Use project. So for us, it was basically opening the markets in third countries, so outside the European Union. For key enabling technologies, basically that's considered at the time by the Commission, so photonics, micro and nano technologies. Today, we also have cybersecurity, for example, AI. So we included this in phase 2. So basically, we gather all these technologies, I mean, actors that work in the sector, and then we basically try to narrow it down to, I would say, to a more niche technologies that we address for I would say, in relation to a specific market. And we help, in phase 2, we help SMEs really to go there. So basically, so basically what we did, phase 1 was dedicated purely to exploratory missions. So the partnership that I've mentioned, so the Danish, Estonian cluster and the 2 French clusters, we went to target countries, which were Canada, the United States at the time, Singapore, and the United Arab Emirates. And basically, as I said, I just wanted to share some lessons because for the sake of discussion, but also for people to have a vision of how clusters are developing in the sector. So we had, I would say, Minalogic and ourselves, we are very much experienced in European projects, while at the time Sensec and EDIA, so the Estonians, they were less. So I would say that the one thing, and I think this goes for all of the sectors, permanent communication, that's very important. You really have to communicate a lot. There are some cultural differences even in Europe among the countries. Sensec and EDIA at the time, they were considered as junior partners, so we had to support them basically even with administrative things in the European projects, but also going further in organizing activities, etc. But that was something that we foreseen, and basically we were happy to kind of mentor them. As I said, the target countries, again, Canada, US, we did a survey among our members, and these were the countries that came up. Then again, we also looked for market data, basically the defense markets, the US defense market, the biggest one. So we had to go there for exploratory mission. Canada came up as a target country, as a wish of our members. And then Singapore, basically we had some previous experience, but not with the defense sector, but we knew that they are very active ecosystem. And then the United Arab Emirates, also based on the budgets and the previous operation experience that we had. So these were the 4 target countries. What was very much important is the timing. It's interesting because every country has its own timing. I would, if I give you examples, in the US, you cannot contact people too early. It has to be, I would say, we contacted them like a month and a half before the mission, and that was perfect. So they put their they block the dates in the agenda. They are very responsive. So that was the timing for the US, Canada the same. So that's North America. Whereas, for example, in the United Arab Emirates, we didn't know if the meetings will be confirmed until the last day. It's very much the old traditional way in which they work and communicate. So until the last day, we didn't know anything. So, and it's not good to contact them too early. Singapore is very similar to the US, but once you set the date, you cannot change it. So they're very much disciplined and straight to the point. One important thing as a European project, but I think also as European actors, there are in every country almost outside of the European Union, you have EU permanent representations besides national embassies. So that's a good point of contact. They have people there dealing with not only with defense, of course not, but with different sectors. So good source of information, and of course embassies as well. This can open a lot of doors. Julie in her presentation already talked, you need to adapt to local culture and business practices. I think this goes for all the sectors. Defense even more, because it's a very delicate sector where people tend to have less, I would say, I mean, you establish relationships, it takes more time. And then again, we had KPIs, for example, which is normal in our project description. We had KPIs about signing the business cooperation agreements. But one thing is the KPIs, and the other thing is the reality. Because in certain countries, if you sign MOUs or cooperation agreements, and it's just for the sake of KPIs, and then you don't do anything else, you close doors for the future. So this really has to be something that you work on, even if it's basically just a piece of paper, considered from your side. Especially, for example, in the United Arab Emirates, it has a big meaning. What were the success factors for us? Basically, yeah, it says here, no one size fits all formula. Really, you have to adapt. Each country has its specificities. Even that the even in yeah, depending on the technology and the needs, etc. So we had a look at what their needs, current and future needs within the defense sector, and we adapted really the activities that we were carrying out. Flexibility, basically flexibility is the key word as well, because things can change quickly. We've seen this with COVID pandemics. And again, you have to check, you have to do your homework and look at what the operational needs of the, for example, armed forces or the other actors that are in the countries, target countries, are in order to basically to pitch and to sell. I mean, to introduce your technology. Yeah,
I think we have to stop here.
Yeah, just a minute. I know that's why my phone was ringing. This is actually the last two lines.
Okay.
So basically, the regional, yeah, this was our help for going basically to present opportunities to companies. We had regional outreach workshops in every country where SMEs were presented with opportunities. So they were basically this was the awareness raising activities I already mentioned. So the market needs have to be studied in details. And then again, every time, I mean, local actors, they will open doors. So you have to plan activities with them, especially in the defense sector. And the last thing I said, you need to be patient. Processes in the defense sector are very long, longer than in other sectors. So patience is a virtue here. And I'll stop here, and apologies for a little more time that I took.
Thank you. I didn't. I've not stopped you because it was very interesting, and I think that you can add something more during the discussion, which I hope to happen. Now, let's go to Poland, to Jakub Palowski, and
Good
let's
afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. May I share my screen? Now that's possible. I'm switching on my presentation. Give me just a moment. No. Give me just a second. I think I will be able to. Let's share. I'm sharing. Do you see my presentation, the first slide?
Not yet. Yes, now it's okay. Go on.
Okay, thank you. To start with, my presentation will be, while the previous presentation of Zika and Juliet were more from industry point of view and from clusters point of view, as Krzysztof said, I specialize in the defense sector as a whole, and that's the reason why I will present you the Polish defense and aviation sectors, both the overview of the defense market, including the buyer side, so the MOD, but also, of course, the industry side, including the role of clusters and including the impact from COVID. So let me start with an overview of Poland as a defense market. Like Krzysztof already said, Poland has the largest armed forces in the Central and Eastern Europe. They amount for approximately 110,000 full-time soldiers plus reservists. So obviously they require much equipment, and that's the area where suppliers can come in. We got 5 services branches: Army, Air Force, Navy, the Special Forces separate, and also the Territorial Defense Forces, which were created 4 years ago, somehow as a response to the events in East, which I'm sure you are aware of. There are substantial needs of equipment procurement because the bulk of the army equipment still dates from post-Soviet times, and it needs to be urgently replaced because the threat from the east means that the defense capability should be at much higher level than it is now. And the budget is amounting to more than 2% GDP. In 2021, it was GDP 2.2%. It is actually, it's approximately 14 billion US dollars. And I will stop here for a while because countries from our region, like Estonia, Lithuania, or Romania, are somehow sharing the same threat perception, and they are also increasing their spending, even though the structure of industry might be different. But that is common to all the countries in region. The need to increase the defense spending as a response to the Russian threat, because we all share more or less the same threat perception. And the challenges, like I said, many of the equipment still dates back to the Soviet times, like the helicopter and the vehicle you can see. Unique challenge for Poland is that there is a political preference for the state-owned companies rather than private companies. And like I will say later, most of the cluster members are private-owned companies, so they encounter some difficulties. And there are also inconsistencies in planning, which, for obvious reasons, make industry capacity planning more difficult. So the major prime contractor of the Polish industry is the Polish Armaments Group. It's state-owned, and it is based on the industrial base largely inherited after the Warsaw Pact times, and it has quite substantial capabilities, including development of the armored vehicles, small arms, ammunitions, and also some electronic systems, air defense, and ships. As a response to COVID, the government decided to place further orders for mortars, vehicles, and assault rifles and ammunition, which improved the condition of the major factories from the sector, because they were able just to continue producing what they already did, but on a larger scale. But that not did solve the structural challenges that the industry is facing. And the challenges from the state-owned industry is, first of all, it is focused on the home market. So it's opposite for the companies in clusters which were mentioned previously, because the large majority of the revenues come from the Polish market, and some of the companies have structural issues like shipbuilding or facilities in Silesia, and they need a financial support from the government. So for them and for the state-owned industry, definitely the top line, as the Americans say, that the volume of defense spending is key. Now, let me move to the private-owned industry, which is which is included in the clusters. It's more diversified, first of all, because it consists both of Polish-owned companies which were established after 1989, after, let's say, we have joined the Free Nations, which with market-based economies, because previously it was not possible, and they specialize in high tech, including command and control, some materials, and unmanned aerial systems, which we will discuss a little bit later. But there are also subsidiaries of market leaders, including Lockheed Martin, Raytheon Technologies, Leonardo, and so on. And they are more focused on export, including as a part of a supply chain of prime contractors and dual-use goods manufacturing. They are highly innovative, but they face challenges due to limited orders from the state, from the MOD. That's the political issue I already mentioned. And the private-owned industry is included mainly in two clusters: the Aviation Valley and the Silesian Aviation Cluster, of which Krzysztof Krystowski is head. And I will I will move on a little bit to the clusters themselves. So first and the largest is the Aviation Valley. It employs more than 30,000 people, and it's present both in civil and military sector. It consists mainly of subsidiaries of market leaders like Pratt Whitney, PZL Rzeszów, PZL Mielec, which is a company of Sikorsky and Lockheed Martin, and PZL Świdnik, which is a Leonardo company. There are subsidiaries of Collins Aerospace, but also the Polish SMEs, which are supplying the supply chain of those market leaders. And what is specific about the Aviation Valley is that those large companies employing some of them more than 1,000 people, like PZL Mielec or PZL Rzeszów, are former state-owned companies of the aviation industry, which were located in the eastern Poland, that were privatized in the 90s or in the first years after the Poland joined European Union. But they created their own supply chains with the Polish SMEs, and due to that they can compete effectively on the market. And the effect of COVID on the Aviation Valley. There were some supply chain disruptions, and there were some redundancies amounting of up to 2,000 people for the entire cluster. But due to the fact that in eastern Poland there are trade unions, and trade unions are the base of the government voters, the Aviation Valley enjoys at least limited political support, and the cluster facing a limited order from the civil sector, switched more to the defense sector. For example, PZL Świdnik and Pratt Whitney received orders from the government for support and the maintenance for the helicopters and helicopters engines, while the company from Mielec managed to secure a contract from Philippines for Black Hawk helicopters with some Polish government support. The government was involved somehow on behalf of PZL. And the second one, the smaller cluster, but not less important, is the Silesian aviation cluster. It is focused also in the aviation sector, but there are not so much large companies like in the eastern Poland in the aviation valley. The majority of members of the clusters are small and medium enterprises, and it consists of companies being members of supply chains of larger companies, but also original equipment manufacturers like the UAVs from Flytronic and MSP. You see here a Polish Fly-Eye UAV, which is flown not only by the Polish armed forces and the border guard, but it is also exported around the world, including in the Ukraine, where it has made some operational use with quite a good results. It can cooperate also with the artillery systems that are manufactured by the state-owned companies I mentioned, but still the Polish government is placing only limited orders from that vehicle due to the fact that it simply wants to order more of them from the state-owned companies it controls, and that's the major hiccup the private industry in Poland is suffering from, because I already heard that, for example, the French cluster had support from DGA, so unfortunately it is a little bit absent in Poland. But let me move to a summary. So first and foremost, Poland is making substantial investments in the sector despite the pandemic. This is because of the Russian threat, and this is in a way similar to other countries in the region like Estonia or Romania. And in Poland, the state-owned industry is given a priority for political reasons, despite the structural issues that are not yet solved. And the private-owned industries, while more innovative and more flexible, they do not receive so much government support, but they are more flexible and more export focused. And SMEs are more often parts of supply chain of large players, and their situation is to an extent dependent on the overview of the sector of Poland and around the world. And one small comment, because I heard of the French companies cooperating in Estonia, and I will try to make some comparison, even though I may end my presentation now. Both Poland and Estonia share more or less the same threat perception, with the Russian Federation is the main threat, but Estonian government is, and both are spending more than 2% of GDP for defense for obvious reasons, but Estonia is more supportive of the SMEs and private companies than Poland, and they have good successes with robots, ground-based unmanned vehicles, cooperating with French industry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was, I'm really very glad that it was not only about Poland, but you present Poland as a typical or very representative market for entire Eastern Europe, and there was a lot of comments related to other countries as well. So let me open the discussion, a brief discussion, because the presentations were a bit longer, especially our gentleman, but because our lady was very much fitted in time. I have a question from the chat by Jamie Quesado. His question is concerning open innovation in terms of cooperation with universities and centers of competence. Which is your experience and challenges for the future? So how open innovation in this cooperation could work on the defense sector? Is it a similar situation? Who raised her hand to answer? Yeah, Ziga, very briefly
Yeah,
let's
very briefly.
for others.
No, a very interesting question, because indeed this is a part of our strategy. I think universities already have open innovation processes I mean, I'm talking about the region here, in our region, and in France. So Airbus, I know that Airbus and, for example, some of the universities in the region, they already cooperate. Ourselves, and the term open innovation, it's very much, as we say in France, à la mode. We're trying to develop a center where we'll be able to basically experiment with technologies and develop the whole process. So the whole from TRL, low TRL 2 until TRL 6, 7. So this is something of, this is our ambition. We don't have any experience yet with, because we're developing. But the challenges here, I would say, basically is how do you transfer the technology from the universities, from the laboratories, and make sure that it fits the needs, today's needs and tomorrow's needs of the industrials, and then the capacity of the MOD, as Jakub was saying. I think that's a challenge.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions to both of you, to Julie and to Ziga. Antonio has also the question. Yes, Antonio, please.
Thank you very much, Christoph. I'm very interested in something that Ziga said before. I understand that the French government has recognized officially 10 clusters, could it be, for working on the defense. That's a very good reference for other governments across Europe. Would you give us more details, or even, I don't know, if you could share something in the chat in terms of references on documentation, on links, or whatever, because we could use that as an example, a very good example.
Just I don't want to make any official comments on behalf of DJ, but I think it's 10. Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's more or less 10. I know. So basically, this was done. It's been since clusters in France were officially recognized by the government in 2005. And at the time it was Ministry for Economy. I mean, it still is, that supports financially, and the regions now more and more. But the DGA, I think, I don't have the exact date in my mind, but at Optitech, I know that the support has been there. I've arrived to Optitech in 2014, and it's been there. I can search for some links, but yeah, there is basically what we do is we help SMEs. There are funding programs also put in place that finance dual-use technologies. There are conferences. Basically, what we're helping now is also to matchmake for the European Defense Fund. So basically, to find European partners, especially for SMEs, help them with finding the right call, documentation, etc. So basically, this has been put in place since at least 7 years, but I think even longer. I can search for links and send them after the webinar, because I don't think it's there is a page dedicated or a page with not a lot of information, given the nature of the sector. But I can search for more information, yeah, and provide it to you.
Thank you very much. It will be good to have that list, okay? And I think something that we could try to write something about it on the ACCP, just to spread the knowledge of the possibility here, okay? Sure. Not only about the French cluster, okay, also from the rest of you that are here, okay? But as you said before, it's something not very well known for the rest.
I know that also Jakub talked about Estonia. I know that that there is quite a strong support from the government side to the cluster, which is a part of the National Defense Industry Association. So that's good because basically they work hand in hand. I also know that in Denmark, our partner Sensec was certified as one of the, I think, 14 clusters now by the government last year or the beginning of this year. So I think these are good cases as well of best practices. Again, I would say it's always about dual use. Very few clusters, purely defense clusters, because I think that the opportunities and I would say the needs to do business and to survive, we have to go to other sectors as well. And the potential of the technologies that we work with, it's in other sectors as well. But yeah, there is governmental support and more, I think, from what Jakub said again, different threats coming for different countries. Of course, I would say the motives are different, but it's going in the right direction.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay. Are there some other questions from audience? I have a question to maybe this time to Julie, but quite common question for both of you. But when I was listening your presentations, I was wondering if those international relations you have as a part of this project, are there more focus on sales or on technology development? Is it possible, because the countries you were mentioned are very demanding markets like US or Japan. So I have a question, this is a big question mark for me, if it is really possible for European SMEs to be a market partner to sell something on these markets, or it was rather to look for some partnership and to deliver some technology or transfer technology from those markets? What is the main purpose of your activity? Maybe Julie.
If I take the example of Japan, we have a very strong relationship with Japan for many years now, and our experience is that it's more focusing on the technological side, trying to build collaboration. So on the defense and security market, our experience is more recent because we started in 2019. But if I take other markets that we had, for example, circular economy, that we have a longer experience, we can see that some SMEs can partner with big companies like we can find in Japan. And regarding the US, it was really more right now more first contact that and also MOU and MOC that we signed to be able to start building this relationship. But right now in the US, we don't have enough experience now to be able for me to tell you, yes, there have so many companies that having those agreements now. Maybe we can have this discussion after the EU Alliance project, because now the objective is really to move further on the collaboration aspects.
Mm-hmm. And another question, because what you are doing, there are those two partnerships, two projects on defense sector by clusters in Europe. Now there are some other clusters, like for example those Polish clusters. I am head of one of them, which maybe would like also to join somehow to your initiatives. I know that it is not possible to become a member of this project because they have been already formally closed. But do you think it would be some opportunity, some possibility for other clusters which are interested in this kind of in collaboration with those defense markets, international market, to collaborate somehow with your initiatives? Do you see this kind of possibility?
Yes, yes. Well, the objective, as I mentioned in the presentation, the objective is really to target European companies. So for us, this is not only members of Tectera or members of NTT, or this is really a European approach. So if any clusters from European countries are interested in the missions that we will organize, we will, of course, we are really open for to discuss that with them.
Yeah, if I may add, Julie, she mentioned in her presentation, Canada is a common country, target country, so we'll organize a delegation together. And of course, we're open. These are European projects. Partnerships are now as they are, but I'm open to all European SMEs and also to the partners, clusters that would like to collaborate in one way or another. We're always happy. And just, if I may, Christoph, to your previous question, again, very good one. For us, for example, US was too complex. We decided not to go because we're too small. As a player, we're too small and the impact would be too small. Even the UAE and Singapore, very complex markets. We don't pretend to be able, when we do with one European projects, to be able to establish a long-term, I mean, the goal is to establish the long-term collaboration, but during the duration of the project, I don't think this will be possible. This, we have to be clear about it and realistic, and especially not go for one shot just to sell technology, because they will buy it, but in the UA, for example, they want to have, if you want to be their partner, a joint venture, you have to have a joint venture with the local actors. So very much in line with your comment, it's a long-term collaboration. If you want to be successful, if it's one shot, maybe it will work once, but then the door is closed and you lose the market.
I have a comment and some practical idea related to that. So, and this is also to Antonio somehow as a president of European Cluster Alliance. Maybe we should consider to build a group inside the European Cluster Alliance, to build a group of clusters which are not exactly defense clusters, because we don't have pure defense clusters in Europe, but maybe we could have some of a club, like a club inside the European Cluster Alliance, to join those who are involved somehow in defense sector, because I think we need this kind of communication platform for those who are dealing with this business. Just even it is related to your answers to my previous question. It would be very practical for my cluster, for example, which is dealing with defense somehow. Jakub Palowski in his presentation mentioned that the biggest Polish UAV producer for military purposes, private military producer, is a member of our cluster. So they are very much interested to sell their products outside of not only of Poland but outside of Europe as well. So we need this kind of collaboration. Antonio, this is for your consideration. If it would be possible, and maybe after this meeting, to build this communication links between our clusters and be open for others which not participated in this meeting, to build kind of a defense sector platform. Jakub Palowski would like to add something before Antonio could answer for my proposal. Jakub?
I'm just adding that the UAV manufacturer we both mentioned, the Flytronic, is manufacturing both UAVs for purely military purposes, like I said, but also for the civilian, including air quality surveillance, traffic surveillance, and so on. So it's also the dual use, and at the same time can be used for the military. The opportunities are really broad. Thank you.
Thank you. Antonio, what do you think?
For sure, you will be very, very welcome to do it, and you as vice president, especially because you have all the capacity to do it. Okay, I will suggest also to study the possibility to go for the joint cluster initiative call. The Euro clusters. By the second half of this year, they will be published, and there should be something like 30 neo-Euro clusters across Europe. Why not try to organize a proposal on that field? Okay, that way you could work on something very concrete. At the beginning of, in my experience, for the working groups, it's always good to have something to do, really to do. No? But it's just a suggestion, okay? But you can count with our full support on it.
Very, very good idea, Antonio. The joint Euro clusters call could be a good opportunity.
Yeah, as a continuation of your experiences gathered from those two projects, but also, for example, my cluster is very much involved in the internationalization because of the projects we are realizing with EU support, but funding in our country, in Poland. So we have projects with the value altogether about, I think, 6 million euro for 5 or 6 years, and we are really traveling a lot, doing matchmaking, promoting, and also in both sectors, in aviation, civil aviation, but also sometimes also in dual use. I don't know if we have still a time, because discussion is very, very exciting, but we are out of 9:30. So maybe there is also a question from Nina, the last one. How strong is collaboration between the private actors within Europe? Who would like to answer? Maybe partially this is the question related to what we have just discussed, that this collaboration is not enough, not at the level we would be happy with. So yeah.
So you mean about between private actors from the industry at the European level?
Yeah. Nina just answered for that. She said yes. I think this already became clear.
I mean, for sure. The question is, do we have the capacity? As I said, I mean, from our experience in France, it's the prime contractors, and then you have mid caps. So we can encourage them, but these are the dynamics that are in place since years, and that's a sector that's very much sensitive, where every country wants to basically have their own capabilities. I think Jakub could tell more, but look at the I know the space sector a little bit more, but you have Germany, France, I think Italy as well, that they have their observation satellites. Each country has its own constellation, and you have but you have Galileo, but still every country has its own capacity, and I think this will stay in place, but it doesn't prevent us from working together. I think more or less our clients are SMEs, and SMEs, as we see it, I mean, in Optitech, they already collaborate a lot, but if we open some other markets and strengthen the collaboration, that will be a really big added value.
Okay, the very last comment from my side. Let me allow the very last. I have an impression that our European Union Commission supports us very much in internationalization, in going for big international markets like US, Japan, etc., etc. But I don't see any support, and in my opinion, it should be really beginning of supporting, especially SMEs on defense sector. I don't see strong support to local governments, members of European Union, to have expectation from them to buy from SMEs in own countries. So this is something which was said by Jakub Palowski from Defense 24, that in some countries, but independently on some general rules of European Commission, there is a openness, kind of openness for buying directly from SMEs. But in majority of countries, we have a situation that there is Leonardo, Airbus, Thales, Safran, etc., etc. While there is no, or PGZ in Poland, and this is no openness for supporting SMEs via clusters by buying those products directly here in Europe. Well, this is my feeling, and I think that if you could agree with this statement, we maybe could also somehow, as a defense-related clusters via European Cluster Alliance, make some statement, some memo to maybe even to Thierry Breton, who is responsible also for this sector, just mentioning this, that if we won't be able to sell in US, in Japan, in Canada, first we should sell in France, Poland, Germany, and Czech Republic and Spain. So this is my feeling.
We could make a position paper and make it public. Why not? For sure.
Antonio, can I intervene just for 1 second?
Hello,
because
Marta. For sure.
Yeah, no, I indeed, I thank you very much your point, Christoph, and I know that for SMEs and especially for very small businesses, it's challenging somehow to sell the products and services. But actually, inside DG Grow, precisely, we have the unit that is the SME unit that is very much focusing on supporting this. So in supporting not the, let's say, the big businesses, Airbus, but supporting the SMEs to have this capacity to sell it locally and regionally. So there is lots of work to do, and sometimes perhaps it is not well communicated, if I might say, but there's a lot of actions, and specifically this work is done by our SME unit at DG Grow.
Okay.
But perhaps I mean, we could organize something with them.
We could discuss it with them, and actually just for you to check it, they have an annual analysis that is called SME Performance Review, where they show somehow different developments from the digitalization environment and so on and so forth. And one of the actions where they analyze is like how to support SMEs on selling the products inside the country and inside the EU. But it's very monitoring based. It's more into supporting member states to understand where we stand. And these are the actions that they were doing from the SME unit. If you wish, yes, Antonio, we can have a discussion with the SME unit. And in the other side, I also encourage you from, let's say, the cluster perspective to make the statement. So because it's always good to hear your voices and to hear your concerns. So if we also have your opinion from the cluster perspective, it would be good to have this. But just for you to have this understanding or this knowledge, there are lots of actions already in place in order to support business, and especially SMEs, because at the end of all, SMEs are 99% of European business, and micro SMEs represent 89%. So it's the core of EU businesses. So if we left them behind, it would not be coherent for the European economy.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that's a very interesting opportunity that you opened to us, Marta. Thank you. and I think that we will get it, no? Work with it.
Yeah. Antonio, if you want later on, we can discuss both of us. Sure.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Very well. It has been an extremely interesting session. Thank you to all of you, okay, for your contribution. And I see that we have several opportunities in the near future to continue working with this group. So I'm looking forward for our next meeting or your next meeting. You don't need me at all. You have Christophe, so don't hesitate to organize this yourself. Thank you to everyone. Bye.
May
Thank you.
For speakers, thank you that you agreed to participate in the session. I know that you have very limited time. So thank you very much. Thank you, Antonio, for being host of it, for the idea. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a good
Thank you.
day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.